Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bauerhausen Presents Album of the Year. My name is David, aka Bauerhausen. This is a podcast exploring some of the most popular albums from each year from 1989 to 2007 and coming up with a list of my top 10 albums for each year. The reason that I chose this time frame is because I was born in 1989 and I graduated high school in 2007. So I thought it would be fun to go back and explore the music I grew up listening to and try to find some hidden gems that I missed along the way, because I'm sure there are plenty of them. This podcast is probably going to be recorded and posted without much of a schedule. I don't have time to listen to a lot of older music. Anyone that knows me knows that my number one priority with music is the new stuff. And if you don't know me, before the idea of this podcast came to me, I would almost exclusively listen to new music and rank albums against each other throughout the year. I've been doing this for roughly 5 years at this point. But recently, I've been wanting to shake things up a little without fully giving up on new music. And that brings us here to 1989. And the first album that I want to take a dive into is Disintegration by The Cure. Released on May 2nd, 1989, and recorded at Hook End Recording Studios in England, Disintegration would go on to become the band's best-selling album, selling over 3 million copies. As the story goes, frontman Robert Smith was turning 30 and felt that he had reached his creative peak. So, while writing this album, he was known to lock himself in isolation and take hallucinogenics and to get the creative juices flowing, which obviously works since I stated before this is their best-selling record. Apparently, tensions were high between certain band members during this recording, and in particular with keyboardist, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, I think it's Lol Tolhurst, who had been struggling with alcoholism. Unfortunately, these tensions would lead to Lowell being kicked out of the band during production. Though he's still credited on the band, I don't think that he did much for the actual album, for the recording. This album is described as goth rock, post-punk, and dream pop, all genres that I feel categorize this album very well. Actually, the entire catalog of the band, I think, can be really described well with those three genres. Their continued use of synths, delay-drenched guitars, and brooding bass lines make a very melancholic sound that I absolutely love. Lyrically, Disintegration explores themes of loss, heartbreak, existential dread, and nostalgia. And the latter half of those themes I can really relate to at this point in my life. I don't know about anyone else listening that's in my age range, around mid-30s, but, there's a lot of fear of the future, and sometimes when I think about nostalgia, there's a lot of hopelessness that comes with ever being able to feel that good again. Anyway, moving past my emo bullshit. Disintegration is a slow, atmospheric, deeply immersive, and emotional experience. Picking standout tracks for this album is a tough task. It's kind of a banger all the way through. But some of my personal favorites are Love Song, which was written as a wedding gift for Smith's wife and became their biggest hit in the US, hitting number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. The Same Deep Water as You is also another standout for me, as I love long songs, and this one has a lot of emotional weight to it. Finally, the closing track, Untitled. I feel like the song leaves you feeling that melancholy and really longing for more out of this album. You just really want another song. This album continues to be a huge influence for alternative bands, such as the Smashing Pumpkins, Deftones, Interpol. It was a huge influence at the time as well. The dark atmosphere of the album helped define goth rock, which continues to be a genre that I and many others still love to this day. In the end, I decided on 7.5 out of 10 for this album, although I'm reserving the right to go back and retroactively change it, because I don't want to start super high with the ratings and skew the whole rating system, So for right now, 7.5 feels right to me, but if later on in this project I feel that that's low, I could go back and give it a higher score. Alright, so on to our next album, which will be Doolittle by Pixies. This album was released on April 17th, 1989, after being recorded in 1988 at Downtown Recorders in Boston and at Carriage House Studios in Stamford, Connecticut. For this album, Pixies brought on producer Gil Norton to give it a more polished sound than their more raw 1988 debut, Surfer Rosa. Doolittle was originally titled Horror, but was changed before release because the name was deemed a little too controversial at the time. Thematically, the album includes references to surrealism, biblical imagery, violence, science fiction. For example, the song Debaser is inspired, I'm going to butcher this, by Unchien Andoliu, a 1929 surrealist film by Louis Buñuel and Salvador Dali. Wave of Mutilation touches on Japanese businessmen committing suicide by diving into the ocean. And Monkey Gone to Heaven, which is my favorite song from the album. It discusses environmental destruction and metaphysical themes, including references to numerology. The album's mix of abrasive and melodic elements, it was a huge influence on alternative and punk music as a whole, both at the time and going forward, in my opinion. In fact, Kurt Cobain of Nirvana cited Doolittle as a major influence for Nevermind, especially the loud, quiet, loud dynamics. If you've ever listened to this album, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Overall, I would say I give this album a 7.3 out of 10. I like it a little less than Disintegration, but it has some really great and noticeable tracks. Especially if you've watched TV or listened to the radio in the last 35 years, you'll really recognize some of this stuff. That's the first little introduction into this project. I don't know if in the future episodes are going to be longer than this, shorter than this. It really just kind of depends on what I have time to listen to. That's it. I mean, if you enjoy, please let me know if there are any albums that you would like me to listen to from 1989. I'd say probably the best way to let me know is to leave them in the Spotify comments, as I'm not on any social media. So there won't be any like Instagram or X page for this podcast or anything. This is just something I'm doing for fun and to kill time and to go back and listen to some stuff that I grew up on. So that'll be it for this episode. And if you're listening, thank you. I appreciate it. And have a great day.